On Deadly Ground is Steven Seagal's first and only directing credit. And even though every Seagal movie is basically about Steven Seagal, Seagal wanted to direct this movie to have an even more autobiographical account of his life and beliefs. On Deadly Ground takes place in Alaska, and we open with an oil rig on fire and the workers are unable to put it out. Seagal plays Forrest Taft, and he arrives by helicopter like some sort of firefighting angel. Oh, and hey, he's not wearing all black. Oh, shit.
Hey, Forrest is here! And fire's as good as out!
I told Jennings they weren't up to spec, but the sonbitch made me use...
Man, this crowd is just loving Forrest. He's like a god to these people. Hell yeah, put that fire out, brother! We're all incompetent nobodies, so thank goodness Forrest is here. Yeah, Forrest had sex with my wife, but I'm not even mad. Rig foreman Hugh Palmer blames Aegis Oil owner Mr. Jennings for the problems on the rig, but Forrest doesn't believe Hugh at all.
Used to be a good man, Forrest. Now you're nothing but a whore.
$350,000? I'd fuck anything once!
Incidentally, Seagal tried to make that the tagline of the movie, but the studio was not having it. So Forrest walks right in the middle of the rig and blows out the fire by detonating an explosion in the center. He gets paid $350,000 to do that. Jennings blames Hugh for the recent spate of accidents, but Hugh thinks that Jennings sabotaged the rig on purpose. That night at a bar, a super racist piece of shit named Big Mike, and Forrest doesn't like that one bit.
Fuck him up, Forrest!
Yeah, Forrest, I want to be just like you. I want you to be my new father and or brother, Forrest. You are a god among men, Forrest. But Forrest just walks past this dude and sits at the bar. Make sure you cash out your tabs so you don't screw over your wages, Forrest. Also, I think you and I should go camping sometime. You're the best, Forrest. Hugh meets up with Forrest and claims that the preventers Jennings installed were faulty and tells him where he can find the evidence. Yeah. Please impregnate my wife, Forrest.
Buddy, don't be fucking with oil workers, huh?
Hey, you're a man, right?
Excuse me, miss. I ordered jalapeno poppers about 20 minutes ago. Oh, and beat his ass, Forrest.
Well, let's see. That's natives 8 and oil workers 0.
Is Forrest considering himself a Native American? Jennings' assistant Lyles informs him that she's heard of an anonymous whistleblower who contacted the EPA about substandard equipment at Aegis 1, specifically faulty preventers. Jennings knows that it was Hugh, and he takes his henchman Magruder to take care of it. Magruder is played by the very underrated John C. McGinley. This dude always understands the assignment.
I don't need that kind of problem right now.
And if I could sit down with Steven Seagal, I would have just so many questions to ask him. But one of the first ones would be, why did Michael Caine have to do this whole scene with shit on his face? Forrest looks into the files and discovers that the blowout preventers were defective, but doesn't realize that his access was flagged, and Jennings orders Magruder to kill Forrest as well. Magruder and Otto go to Hugh's house and torture the shit out of him to get Hugh to give up his logbooks.
You want to talk about faulty equipment? Well, let's see how faulty this little pipe cutter is.
And Jesus, Seagal. And flagging Forrest's account was completely unnecessary because Forrest flat out tells Jennings all about the incredibly damning evidence that he found. And so after admitting to the ruthless oil baron that he has information that could cost him billions, Jennings sends Forrest out to deal with another accident at a substation.
If you smell anything, get out of here!
Don't worry. We know what we're doing.
Man. Read the helicopter, Forrest. So the most trusting Eskimo in Alaska goes to investigate the accident and discovers Hugh's lifeless body and that the substation is rigged to explode. Forrest manages to make it out alive, and a group of Eskimos discovers him unconscious and takes him back to their village. Jennings calls a press conference and says the explosion was sabotage committed by Forrest and Hugh and that they both died in the blast. The leader of the village comes to check on Forrest, and of all the weird, quasi-spiritual Seagal characters, Forrest Taft is another one.
He thought you were a bear. He still thinks you might be a bear. He hasn't decided yet.
I'm a mouse. Hiding from the hawks. In the house of a raven.
The chief and his daughter, Masu, nurse Forrest back to health, and he goes on a vision quest, where he fights a bear and then must choose between a beautiful naked woman or a clothed elderly woman. And in the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in a movie, Forrest chooses the old woman, and she tells Forrest that man is destroying the earth, and Forrest must convince them to change. Magruder, Otto, and the Joker's henchmen from the 1989 Batman movie arrive in the village, and they find Forrest's coat and shoot the chief, and then leave. It is a very abrupt scene. Forrest and Masu make their way to Hugh's house to gather supplies, and Forrest finds the log disc. desk. But Jennings' men show up, and they've clearly never seen a Seagal movie. And so they swarm the house from every entry point, and they all run out of bullets, and that's when they're in the most danger, because Forrest just throat chops them all into oblivion. Magruder realizes that they're outmatched, and he demands to know the story behind Forrest Taft.
Delve down into the deepest bowels of your soul. Try to imagine the ultimate fucking nightmare, and that won't come close to this son of a bitch.
And so you just hired a guy like that to put out fires on oil rigs? Like, did that information come up in Forrest's job interview? Like, what did he do to earn that reputation? So Jennings then hires a group of mercenaries to take down Forrest, and they're led by Stone, played by the late great R. Lee Ermey, and they even have early 90s Billy Bob Thornton, so Forrest is fucked. Forrest and Masu load up Hugh's disc, and according to the pressure readings, the whole platform is a time bomb.
The whole goddamn platform is a time bomb.
Oh, I'm sorry. A time bomb. So Jennings' plan is to get everything he can out of the well and then cause an oil spill, and then use deep well injection to pump all of the toxic material back into the earth, and then broker the space to another company. All within the 13 days so that he can screw the Eskimos out of the land contract. Jennings is a straight-up cartoon villain at this point. Dudes like Dr. Claw, Cobra Commander, and Mr. Burns all rolled into one. Oh shit, actually he's just like Captain Pollution. Remember him? He was a clone of Captain Planet, and this was his catchphrase.
Your polluting powers combined, I am Captain Pollution!
So they have Jennings dead to rights. Like, they have the smoking gun in their hands, so Forrest figures the only way to stop Jennings is to blow up Aegis 1.
It's like I always say, we gotta blow it, and we gotta blow it now.
You always say that? Like, that's your catchphrase? Also, is that the only way to stop Jennings? You can't think of anything that doesn't involve millions of dollars in damage? Seagal then goes against type and becomes a total nihilist.
I mean, do you really think that this hocus-pocus spirit stuff is gonna help us now?
I didn't want to resort to violence.
You know, his whole reluctant, non-violent stance would hold way more weight if he didn't have a secret John Wick room full of weapons. So Stone is worried that they have no information on Forrest from before he came to work for Aegis, and I love how Seagal is just using the same exact plot point from Under Siege. So Forrest and Masu go to his secret arsenal shed high in the mountains that's full of explosives. And another thing he stole from Under Siege is having a woman along whose sole job is to ask him questions so Seagal can show off how smart he is.
What are you doing?
This is a comm unit. If I key up a signal, they'll be able to find me.
What is that?
This is a Seal magnaphone. It's an MX 2020. It's a secure satellite uplink.
Forrest turns on the communicator, luring the mercenaries to his position, and then he starts setting traps around the shed.
Get this up to the horses as fast as you can. Stay down, stay out of sight.
You could have gone as slow as necessary, but I had to jumpstart the endgame here. Stone and Magruder get dropped off to pursue Forrest on horseback. The helicopter provides support from the air, while Forrest rigs the shed to blow and only gives himself like 2 seconds to get away. Forrest and Masu easily get away and make their way to Aegis 1, and he begins to rig the place to blow. Jennings calls in the FBI anti-terrorism unit to stop Forrest, and Jennings sucks and all, but Forrest kind of is a terrorist right now. I mean, some of Jennings' people are evil, but now you've got FBI agents in a building that is actively being set to explode. Like, Forrest has evidence in his possession of what Jennings is up to. Now, I don't know if cutting corners on an oil rig is exactly illegal, but it should at least be enough to breach the contract. Like, why didn't Forrest alert any authorities? That was a dumb question. Forrest then begins murdering Jennings' men at an alarming rate. Like, these could just be innocent guards who are under the correct assumption that a psycho in a frilly coat is going to blow up this building.
Forrest Taft is the patron saint of the impossible.
You know, Magruder and the mercenaries were unable to find any information on Forrest, but Jennings seems to know all about his background, so why didn't he just tell them all this before? Oh, that's right. I keep doing that. I'm so stupid.
Right out of here, this place is gonna blow!
So the eco-terrorism event begins, and the truly innocent workers are only given seconds to evacuate. And any third-shift workers and custodians that survived the initial blast are surely finished off when Forrest starts dumping toxic hydrochloric acid throughout the facility.
He took out structures 8, 12, and 21.
That's not enough to shut us down. He'd need a miracle to stop us now.
3 different sections of your oil rig are on fire, and that's not enough to shut down your oil rig that is supposed to pump flammable oil to the surface where all the fire is.
Anytime the military has an operation that can't fail, they call this guy in to train the troops, okay? He's the kind of guy that would drink a gallon of gasoline so he could piss in your campfire.
I think that's plan B. Magruder and Lyles try to take off in a helicopter, but Forrest rips Magruder out and throws him into the tail blade of the chopper. Magruder, using pipe cutters and hammers on a really old dude. Magruder, supposed to be a hard ass, but he's scared of this guy. Magruder, he doesn't have a face now. Magruder! Forrest finally makes his way to the rig and overloads the system. And I mean, you've got hydrochloric acid and all kinds of shit seeping out and burning into the atmosphere. I'm starting to think this was a really dumb plan. Stone gets the drop on Forrest, and if anyone's going to give Forrest a challenge, it's going to be... I forgot, all Seagal characters, like Seagal himself, are the greatest specimens known to mankind. And despite everything, if Jennings gets this burning husk of a station online by the deadline, then he still retains drilling rights.
He's still getting it online. That stupid asshole. Can't believe what he's doing.
You can't believe what he's doing? You both kinda suck. Forrest catches up to Jennings.
What does one say to a man with no conscience?
Probably, sure you could beat up Jean-Claude Van Damme, Mr. Seagal. Forrest then kills Jennings by throwing him into a vat of oil. And in true Forrest fashion, he only gave himself about 30 seconds before the bombs start going off. So Forrest and Masu barely make it out of their own explosion, and those innocent people are definitely dead, and they drive straight to the Alaska State Capitol for the thrilling climax of this movie, a 10-minute diatribe on the evils of the oil industry.
How many of you out there have heard of alternative engines?
Shut up, everybody.
Engines that can run on anything from alcohol to garbage or water. Or carburetors that can get hundreds of miles to the gallon. For the world they destroy, only for the money they make in the process.
We all need to be doing our part for Mother Earth.
How many oil
You're
spills can we endure? They've made it a crime to speak out for ourselves, and if we do so, we're called conspiracy nuts and we're laughed at. We're angry because we're all being chemically and genetically poisonous gases that are all accumulating.
I was supposed to pick up my wife from the airport 40 minutes ago before Forrest let us leave. Like, can you imagine, you're in 1994, and Steven Seagal is at the pinnacle of his career, and you pay to see his follow-up to Under Siege, and just praying for the end credits to roll? So that was On Deadly Ground, which probably should be considered the death knell of Seagal's career. Like, he has a couple decent movies left in him, but at this point, we're looking at less than a decade of mediocrity, and then we get nothing but straight-to-video Seagal. Kinda can't wait.